Hey, if you're at home, give a high five to people around you. We're only going to be a few minutes. I told the production team we're going to be an hour and a half. Kidding. As Cedric walks off the platform. So go ahead and be seated. We are going to be short today as we celebrate Freedom Sunday. You can bring that up, sir. You're a good man. Thank you, worship team. You're rock stars. You're blessings. We love you. And if you're at home, let's give these guys a big O A-O. Oh, look at this on the old Freedom Sunday. I got a bag of Skittles up here with me today. Maybe I should eat them and just get a little bit of a sugar high, huh, Cedric? I'd really break that camera walking around the place. Yeah, I went to Jimmy's yesterday because Wednesdays at 4 o'clock seems to be the new deal, man. So if you're available on Wednesdays at 4, show up at Jimmy's, and we're going to pack the place out. We sit down on those tables, and we will by ourselves keep that place in business. So, yeah, come on out. Now, listen, I'm not buying, all right? Peggy is. Peggy is. The last person that shows up is buying. All right. So anyway, we are so grateful. Hey, really good news. Pastor Doug announced earlier about the CD. I found out today that there's a church down south that has got a hold of the CD, and they've been using it as in their prayer time as a church and as their worship time, and it's just been a real blessing to them. And also I found out that the CD is now physically going over to Uganda. There's some missionaries that are taking it over there, and they're going to bless a whole big old area. These missionaries have been over there for years and years, and they're getting their hands on this CD, and they're taking it over there. So, man, it's really good, really neat to see what the Lord's doing and bringing it places, but hopefully it's been a blessing to you. Give me a few minutes. I want to talk today about freedom in faith. Freedom in faith. We've been on this faith series. Next week, we are going to continue to talk faith throughout the year, but over the next few weeks, Pastor Doug's going to be rocking it out, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. We're so thankful for him, and so get your hearts ready for that because it's going to be a fun time. But I've had this I've been in faith for a long time, or actually several weeks we've been talking about faith, because there's so many misconceptions and there's so many misunderstandings regarding faith. And I'm not saying I got the thing licked. I'm not saying I understand it perfectly. But I do know a lot more today than what I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. But man, I tell you, there is great freedom in faith. And so there's really, it's kind of goes along with what today is as far as July 4th. We celebrate our freedom. But I want to just talk a minute about freedom. Because freedom is a big deal. I remember watching this movie. I wish I could remember it. I was racking my brain trying to remember what it was. But it was a movie or a show where somebody was in jail. And they were mad and they were frustrated that they were locked up and all that kind of stuff. And after getting all mad and being, going through the anger of being in jail, they hit the door and the door flung open. It was unlocked the whole time. I looked around, no one was in there, so they obviously got out of there. I would have done the same thing, you know what I'm saying? But that's kind of what happens in our walk, in our spiritual journey. You see, when we talk about freedom, we usually go to places like freedom of addiction, right? Freedom from anger, freedom from whatever, alcohol, freedom from, there's all kind of a big list of things when we talk about freedom. And all those things are hugely important to the Lord. They're hugely important, and He wants us free from those things. Amen, somebody. But there's a greater freedom that Jesus came to bring us that I happen to believe that when we settle this freedom, it allows us to be able to tackle the other freedoms a lot easier. And so when Jesus stood up in Luke chapter 4, this is a very popular part, but maybe there's some people who haven't heard it or need a reminder or whatever be the case. But Luke chapter 4, Jesus shows up, and He's doing what He's done. It's basically, this is a common thing that Jesus did, is He went into the temple and on Sabbath day, this is what He did. He went and did this. Have you ever had God interrupt kind of your plan? You kind of doing stuff, this is what I do. This is where I go. Now we got a standing order, Wednesday at 4 o'clock at Jimmy's, right? It's like, that is important. Hopefully God never interrupts that. Winter might, but I don't know if God will, because God just loves Jimmy, and he loves me. So that's a standing order. But it says in verse 16, it says, Jesus, he went to Nazareth, and where he had been brought up. And on the Sabbath day, he went into the synagogue, as was his custom. He stood up to read, and the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. Unrolling it, he found a place where it is written. This is one of the most popular parts that Jesus did when he first launched into his ministry part. It says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. Can I just say, if you're involved with a church that is feeding you bad news, run. Anyway, that's another message for itself, but that's a little disclaimer. Is that okay, Peggy? I mean, there's a lot of churches out there, right, sweetie, that preaching just bad news. People walk out, they feel depressed, they feel hopeless, they feel down and out, they feel like a sinner, a worse sinner than what they were going in. And so Jesus starts out by saying, anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. I find that when you hang around religion, that news can get bad. But when you hang around Jesus, the news becomes good. And sadly, there are both people in the church world. There are people who are addicted to bad news. There's people who are addicted to good news. Doesn't mean they're not saved, they're not going to heaven. It's just, I don't want that kind of life. That's just me personally. I know there's bad news out there, and I could live in it all day long. But man, I'm going to hang around the good news. And good news that Jesus came, he came to give good news to the poor. And he also says, and he has sent me to proclaim freedom to the prisoners and recovery of sight for the blind, to set those oppressed free. And verse 19, this is a winner right here. To proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. The year of the Lord's favor. Do you know, I don't have time to get into it now, but we are living right now in the year of the Lord's favor. The year of the Lord's favor is not, 60 AD, or it's not, 2042. It's now. The year is, just look at it like this, a season. We're in a season of favor that, listen, isn't intended to end. Come on, somebody. That's beautiful. And so this whole thing is based on what Jesus came to do. And we got to look at this thing and say, Jesus said he sent me to proclaim freedom to the prisoners. So he either did it and came and brought freedom, or he did not. And then if he didn't, that means Jesus is a liar. I'd like to think that Jesus was telling the truth. So from his mindset and ours, when you look around the world and you see so many people that might be addicted, so many people that might be bound in some kind of way, we can really look and we can say, well, Jesus didn't do the work. Because we got so many people that are just not free. But how many of you know that you can be free and not know it? It's like that guy with the jail. Getting all mad because he's inside. He happens to hit the jail door, and the thing swings open. And the word comes to mind, you've been free all along. You just didn't know it. You see, we've got to look at it this way. Jesus didn't come just to bring me out of financial issues and to financial freedom. He came to bring me from a place of being blind and not being able to see him for who he is and what he is, to now being able to see Father through what Jesus has done. You see, there's a greater realm of freedom that Jesus was talking about. I'm going to walk really fast just to make Cedric happy, right? Come on, Cedric, follow me. Follow me, Cedric. Let's go. I'm free, baby. Here comes the squirrel picture, right? Just got to make sure Cedric's awake. But listen, there's some of us that live a life wanting to have freedom because we base freedom on a feeling. And when we don't feel it, especially if we don't feel it so long because circumstances hit us from all different angles, we don't feel free. But Jesus isn't saying anything about I didn't come. He didn't say I'm coming to help people feel free. I'm helping people to get free, to live free, to be free. There's a difference. If we all waited till we felt free, how many of you really think we would be experiencing freedom? Probably not many. But the issue is this. When he said, I'm proclaiming freedom for the prisoners. Proclaiming freedom for the prisoners. Proclaiming freedom for the prisoners. In other words, Jesus was calling us free long before we even knew what freedom was. Jesus was proclaiming your freedom long before, while we were sinners. We know that one, right? While we were dead to sin. While Jesus was proclaiming mankind's freedom. I'm so thankful we serve a God like that looks at me when I'm in my worst state and when I was in my worst state and says, hey, wait, Mark, you're free. You just got to catch up to what I've done. Man, when I went to Maxie Boys' home years ago, I went there to rap and sing and all kinds of stuff. Yes, I said rap and sing. It was amazing. There was some guys in there, or actually boys, because it was a younger men that had done some serious stuff. You know, by the end of the time of me being there, man, I experienced something that I've never thought I would. I went also into the Ionia State Prison, which is over there by Grand Rapids. And I spent some time in the prison down in Mexico, too. You know, we went there to minister with a group of us and played basketball with them. And it's amazing to me how many of them were locked up behind bars, but yet were free in their hearts, free to praise. I'll tell you, we went into a praise session that I don't think I've ever had in church. I just offended somebody. I don't think I've ever experienced it in church, what I experienced in some of these prisons. They were locked up behind bars. They have a history that none of us probably compare to. And yet, when we got into praise and worship and began to preach the word and begin to minister to them, man, they came alive like you would not believe. You say, yeah, well, they're in prison. No. They brought their praise to the party. They brought their freedom to the party. They didn't wait for something to happen at an altar call. They brought their freedom to the party. You see, something happened on the inside with a lot of those boys that I can't wait to have happen globally around the world. And that as they came into contact with the Savior and they realized that there was a freedom much bigger than just getting out from behind the bars. Now, would they want to be out? Yes, of course they would. But man, they were alive. They were praising. They were killing it because they came into contact with this freedom that Jesus proclaimed so many years ago. Galatians 5:1 tells us like this. It says, and I'm reading it from the Contemporary English Version because I just love the way it reads. It says, Christ has set us free. You know, Peggy, I'm going to just talk with Peggy for a little bit tonight or today. I'm just going to, Peggy, how many are living like Jesus hasn't set us free, but they're waiting for him to set us free? You know what you understand what I mean? They don't realize the big scope of freedom. Christ has said, he's already done it. Christ has set us free. This means we are really free. And the Bible says, now hold on to your freedom and don't ever become slaves of the law again. So if the law is one of those things that brings us bondage, what might bring us and allow us to tackle that freedom? It's grace. It's grace. I was talking with a guy earlier this week, and he was saying, that he appreciated the fact that our church, and we're not perfect at it by any means, but we are moving in that direction, right? He appreciated the fact that we are staying our course in the message of grace. I said, I don't know how else to go. I mean, we could go down the path of putting a lot of pressure on people and legalizing some things and all that, going legalistic. That's just no fun. But the fact that we can live, give, serve, love, do the things we do and extend grace out of freedom, man, I tell you, that's when lives are changed. And so I appreciate that gentleman saying that. But man, I don't want to go back and grab a hold of the law. Are you with me today, church? I don't want to go back and grab a hold of that thing because it makes me feel good. Because the law will make you feel good because you were able to cross the T's and dot the I's and get the checklist. You'll feel good about it, right? I read my Bible 30 minutes today. I prayed for an hour today. I did all the spiritual gymnastics. You'll feel good about that. And there's nothing wrong with doing those things. But man, I tell you, living this life of freedom and grace allows us to be able to take that step further and being able to say, I don't give a care anymore. I'm not going back. I'm going forward. How many online today are saying, I just don't give a care anymore? I ain't going back. I'm moving forward. If you're moving forward today, put that word in there, forward, 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 forward. Here Paul is saying, I, Paul, promise you that Christ won't do you any good if you get circumcised. This is that argument. If you're circumcised and uncircumcised, it's with religious gymnastics, right? If you do, you must obey the whole law. Now, that's a whole message in and of itself I don't got time to get into. And if you try to please God by obeying the law, listen to this. This is like one of those things that it's like, man, you have cut yourself off from Christ and his wonderful kindness. Now, come on, that's some serious, serious stuff. People say, well, Christ will never, no, Christ will never leave you, but man, you can cut that thing off. You can cut it off, and I'll tell you, it will. It will put you in a feel-good moment because you have went to the law, and you crossed all the T's, and you dotted all the I's. Oh, man, I'll tell you, there's something about Paul when he said that. But you will cut yourself off from the goodness and the kindness of Christ. I don't know about you. I know about me. I know about my bride. We're going to stay connected to the goodness and the kindness of Christ. So that means we're going to stay in a grace life. A grace life. So let's just go a little further. Can we go a little further? You guys okay with this? Yeah? Feeling good? Good. Ephesians 1:7 tells us this. I love the Message translation. Sometimes I pull this out. Tiffany, I didn't give you these tonight, but it's okay. People, they can pull their phones out. Ephesians 1:7 through 10, it says, because of the sacrifice of the Messiah, his blood poured out on the altar of the cross, we're free people. That's what it says. We're free people. Has nothing to do with because I did this, because I did that, because I went here, because I sang that, because I said that, I'm a free person. No. We do those things because we are free people. We don't do these things to be free. He said it right here. I just go and read in the other translations too. It says, because of the sacrifice of our Messiah, his blood poured out on the altar of the cross. We're free people. Then he goes on a little further. It says, free from the penalties and punishments chalked up by all our misdeeds. And if that wasn't enough, it continues and it says, and not just barely free. Not just barely free. It says abundantly free with an exclamation point. So that means you got to scream it. Abundantly free. I know for people who have been in the church world a long time, that doesn't really excite you. But if you just got out of stinking jail, you'd be very excited to walk around this land free. If you've been in bondage to legalism, and if you've have years and years of thinking that God was mad at you, or he was this wrath-filled, hate-filled God, and all of a sudden you came into contact with grace, you'd be excited about this abundantly free with an exclamation point. But sometimes people forget where they came from, Ayo. And so all of a sudden, we don't get excited about the abundantly free. We don't get excited about this big time being free. But I tell you what, I know where I was at one time. I know how I thought. I know how I lived. I know where I was. I know just my perception of God and the world. I tell you, today I can say I am abundantly free. Is there anybody at home today? The few people that are in the house today, are you free? Hey-oh. See, I think we got something to be excited about. I don't know about you. I got something nice about it. I don't know. Right? Abundantly, abundantly, abundantly free. Look what it says after that. If you're following on that Message translation. He thought of everything. Provided for everything we could possibly need, letting us in on his plans, or the plans he took such delight in making. I'm so glad Father let us in on this freedom plan. Shoot. You know what's funny? Doug and I talk about this often, about where we've been over the past year and a half, and the whole political rants and this and that and all this stuff about Dems and, Republicans and all this stuff. I mean, how many know there's been a few things said? Right? Just a few, right? If you don't know, I'll forward you all the stuff I got over the last year and a half, and you'll have a good time watching it all. Be great. Just grab yourself some popcorn and go for it. But let me tell you something. We can be free in our nation, but yet still be bound. We can still be free. We can be free in thinking it's all the Republican way, or free in thinking it's all the Democrat way, but yet still be locked up and not free in the area that God has called us to be free in. Now, you have freedom to decide if you want to be a Republican. You have freedom to decide if you want to be a Democrat. That's not my issue. My issue is, are you going to step into the freedom spiritually that Father has provided for you? That abundantly free kind of living. Somebody would say, now I'm Pastor Zach. Well, no, he said Democrat. He's a Democrat. He's a Republican. No, he's a Republican. I'm just a person. I really am. Just a person. I love Jesus. I love his people. Most of them. I love... Is that okay? Tell us how you really feel. Well, let me say their names, Oh, I'm kidding. Hey, family, I love Cedric. Cedric's my buddy. He got the squirrel going. 2 Corinthians chapter 3. I want to spend just a few moments and then we're going to close it up. If God set this thing up in a way that you and I had to earn, we had to do, we had to achieve, we would never get there. We would never get there. I mean, Pastor Doug is about as close to a human being that would get there as anybody. I mean, way beyond Cedric. Way beyond me. Told you I was going to pick you on you today, brother. But I mean, if he set this up in a way that we had to achieve or do or we had to arrive, we would never get there. This was the problem with the law. The law always proved that we didn't have what it took to get to a place of being in right standing. So what you do is you go from these 10 rules, and you say, well, that's not enough. So now we got to make more. And we end up with 600 and something rules, and now we got even more than that because it's just not enough. If you have kids, they will push the envelope at certain points of their age to test your resolve in your rulemaking. I have done that. You tell me I got to drive 65, guess what? I'm going 60. Because I'm a good boy. I am a good driver. I am a great driver. But you know what I'm saying? Our kids will push the envelope. Look at it. Over the years, over the centuries, over the decade. I mean, just God's people have pushed the envelope. So what God's people do is they add another rule on top of that. Well, they continue to break that. Okay, we got to add another one on there. Now you got to be circumcised. Now you got to wash your hands before you eat. Now you got to stand up, and the women got to sit down. It's just all these kind of rules. Like, my goodness, you have to go through schooling just to learn how to act. But he didn't set it up that way. He set it up in a way that all we had to do was receive this freedom. Jesus says he came to proclaim freedom. He proclaimed it. Somebody's like, yeah, but he's got to do. No. If Jesus proclaims something, it's good enough for me. Anybody with me today? Then it says this, 2 Corinthians chapter 3, 16 to 18 says, but whenever anyone, I just want you to know I'm part of the anyone. But whenever anyone turns to the Lord, the veil is taken away. And it says, now the Lord is the Spirit. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. Come on, we're going to close up here, but we're going to go somewhere here, okay? This is important to understand. Anyone who turns to the Lord, I don't care if you said it at the altar. I don't care if your car, you just turn your heart to the Lord. I don't care in that moment. That where you turn to the Lord, the veil has been removed. In other words, the veil, if you look at it this way, was the separation point. The veil was torn when Jesus was on the cross, and now the veil is removed off our eyes so that we can see who Father is, so that we can see him for what he is. God has made this in a way, guys, that you and I in 2021 can see him for who he is, can see him for what he is, can see him, and we can have that heart-to-heart, face-to-face, and not have to be veiled and then like, oh, I can't see God, no, the glory is too strong. No. Why would God block us from seeing him when he wants to dwell on the inside of us? Doesn't even make sense that he would come and say, now you are my temple, but now I'm going to still keep you veiled. I mean, that just doesn't even make sense. Anyone who turns to the Lord, the veil has been removed. Boom. Instantly we begin to see. And the Bible now says that where the Spirit of the Lord is, the Spirit of the Lord dwells in the temple. You follow the Old Testament. When the building was built, the Spirit of God filled that place. And now we are the building. We are the temple. And the Spirit of the Lord comes and dwells on the inside of us. And then it says, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. I just happen to think that you're more free than what you realize. There's more freedom inside of you and around you than what you know. The problem is we look at freedom from a natural perspective. And I tell you, the natural perspectives will shift when we see the spiritual, the supernatural part free. You're not striving to be a son or daughter. You are a son and daughter. You're not striving to be spiritual. You are spiritual. You may not know what other people know that have been further down the road, but you still are a spiritual being. It says there is freedom. There is freedom. I wonder what would happen if we would practice this throughout the week and throughout the months to come, that we would, in our hearts, begin to say, now where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. Now where the Spirit of the Lord is, there's freedom. There's freedom over Mark Wargo. There's freedom over you. There's freedom over you. There's freedom. Those you watch online, there's freedom over you. You don't have to live in that emotional despair. But we got to settle some things in the spirit first. We got to settle some things spiritually. People go, well, I don't know why I'm so angry with everybody. Well, we got to let God help you get free with this anger. That's just one. I'm telling you, there's so much freedom to be had. There's so much freedom. And if Jesus proclaimed it, man, it's good enough for me. I just want to know what it means to live in it fully. Anybody with me today? Verse 18, and we all, who with unveiled faces, contemplate the Lord's glory, are being transformed into his image with ever increasing glory. I'd much rather be a work in progress of being transformed into his glory than living by the law, a bunch of rules and regulations, and feeling good like I am there. Because living by the law will make you feel like, okay, I've achieved some things, now I'm really in right standing. No. Grace will encourage you to continue the journey, continue the process in the mess and in the good, knowing that you're being transformed into his glory with an unveiled face, nothing to hide, nothing to protect you, it's nothing to separate you, it's just unveiled, boom, you and Father. And that's what I want. That's what I want for you. Today, if you're saying, Pastor, I want that kind of freedom, can you do this real quick for me? Give me a thumbs up online, because I do go back and I look at these and I pray over you. They say, Pastor, I want that kind of freedom. That's me. Thumbs up. There's people online right now that are praying for you. They're praying with you. Maybe there are some natural things that you need to overcome and get into a place of freedom. Man, our people are praying with you and for you in that as well. Maybe an addiction, maybe anger, maybe poverty, maybe fears, or whatever be the case. But first and foremost, we want to step into this place with Father, this place of freedom, this place of being, abundantly free, not just a little bit. But if that's you today, will you slip your thumb up there? Will you give me that thumb emoji or whatever that is and put it on there and let me know? I tell you, there's so much freedom for you. Let's pray together. Father, thank you for all that you are. Father, thank you for that freedom. Thank you for your goodness. Father, thank you that you have made us abundantly free. Simply can't thank you enough. And whether we feel like it or not, God, we receive it, we step into it, and we believe what you have proclaimed, Jesus. That there is freedom. That there is freedom. That there is freedom. There's freedom over your family today. There's freedom over your kids today. There's freedom over your finances today. And we just declare this on July 4th, that freedom is over you today.